Attention gamers. If you are anything like me and lane worse than a drunk Helen Keller on the Autobahn with a broken turn signal, and this often results in situations where you get poked down and all you have to rely on is the useless magical queefing cat you adopted, but you don't have enough time to go base and heal up or you'll miss a whole wave. I never know what the right thing to do here is, so I usually just sit there with my thumb up my ass, and if you are really trash like me, you are always asking yourself, to back or not to back. That is the question, which most of the time ends in me sitting on large amounts of cash until the day aliens arrive on Earth. Well, if you are as illiterately retarded as me at this game, then I have good news for you, because this Caitlyn simp of a challenger ADC found the solution, which boils down to this.
It is literally just buy symbiotic souls as ADC on your first base. You get 900 gold, you win the game, okay?
His name is Saber. I'll link his stuff below, and his video explains why this simple strategy is so effective, so you can watch that. But it boils down to just constantly backing in these situations and being able to get back in time to catch the next wave every time, because of the symbiotic souls having a giga fast recall and Keemstar level movement speed running back to lane. This means you always have a gold advantage over your opponent with enough speed to kite or catch, which is resulting in him having insane win streaks. My first thought was, okay sure, but he plays in an elo where support players aren't eating Tide Pods, and if I do this I just know that every time I base my dipshit of a blonde dumbass that the solo Q gods tethered me to will not only attack the wave screwing up the freeze, but she'll flat out just take the whole wave herself, defeating the entire purpose. But I decided to put my doubts aside and give it a try anyways, and results after just the first few games were insane. The only game I have lost doing this was clearly one of those Planet of the Apes reruns in terms of my team, so today I will show just how insane this simple strat is on the Mall Cop, and then I will check if it can work on other ADCs as well, so please politely abuse my subscribe button and let's get into it. Game 1, I had the little chode Bon Boy as my support against arguably the two biggest bops on the Rift, and the early game was about as eventful as a Mimes podcast, as the only interactions I had was me acknowledging when one of them stepped on a trap. I never looked to fight because I knew I didn't have to. The strat called for working my hourly wage shift as a hoodlum homicide creator until I've made 900 gold coins, and then to promptly hit up the needed Boris boutique to purchase me those Simbi souls. This is where I summarized the entirety of my strategy to my support before promptly killing a single wave and basing again, something I never would have done before. When I get back I'm still not looking to fight, as my only goal right now is to get last hits and cash in. Bruh. And I'm never really gankable because I'm never really in lane, as I keep backing and getting back just in time to catch the next wave. I rinse and repeat like this strategy is written on a shampoo bottle, while slowly building up an advantage purely on tempo that has resulted in me having almost double the farm of my opponent. So by the 14-minute mark my KDA has more O's than a bowl of Fruit Loops, and this is when the first fight breaks out. My little Mexican midget simps for the blonde, letting her shine a bunch of light in his horny eyes, and before you know it the Jack Sparrow slut is desk popping hand cannons at him. I give a new meaning to the phrase thirst trap, as she gives an unwelcome new meaning to the phrase flashing me before I too use all my summoner spells to make sure she's the one without color on her screen at the end of all this. I tried to get the blonde to stick around after, but the little pervy chihuahua scares her off. Considering I can base and get back so fast, I never am sitting on excess cash, which by the transitive property means I'm now always down to clown when it comes to getting in dick swinging contests with their bot lane. At one point I did have a run-in with the Sped Jedi, but I provided the Blastoise to his Charizard at just the right time, so all I had to do was put my name on the top of the group project to get my credit. So at just 16 minutes into the game I've played it extremely safe up until now, with a strategy that may be boring but can be relied on every early game, and if you are wondering how much stronger that makes me over the enemy ADC at this point, please see Exhibit L for this MF. When it comes to bot lane towers I follow the classic stripper employee rule set, aka I touch yours but you don't touch mine, which probably doesn't even make sense. I've never been to a titty bar. I spent my childhood playing League of Legends for fuck's sake, but Turbo Virgin soapbox aside, do you know where I have been? To Rift Herald's house, because I have enough movement speed to get there while their ADC is stuck further south than an immigrant during the Trump administration. That's a political joke in case you weren't already annoyed by the TTS voice, but anyways, by the looks of it my right clicks were needed up here, as Rift Jeff's side would have most definitely turned the rest of my team gay if I wasn't here for it. Then we're all exposing ourselves as bronze for lifers by running around the jungle aimlessly together when there are zero objectives around, but when I see a full health Lux get bitch binded, I just know I have to play a game of surprise you a dead bitch. We swap the game mode to ARAM, which is customary at my rank, as the perky-titted pirate gets invited to be put in a morgue by a morgue, but the JFK reenactment doesn't go to plan. I then take one look at my team's windshitter and say, hey dude, your brother ate more Tide Pods than you today, and this is enough to make the dumbass attack his win twin, and that, my friends, is how you properly manipulate a moron. At this point I've gotten so fed that I've lost sight of the strategy, as I'm literally sitting on a California rent payments of hard cash, and the other thing I've apparently lost sight of is the mini-map. A full-blown war is raging behind me, all while I'm holding on to a glimmer of hope that I can fuck this blonde. Not to draw parallels with my real life, but I do end up giving up on that dream and opting to just attend a Master Yi's funeral instead. Then you can find me and Dora the Explorer more overextended than a gambler's line of credit, and when we get ganked, resulting in my backyard baseball character looking enchanter getting popped like a piñata. You might think this is doomed, but that's where you are wrong.
You are now in the presence of a king.
And after a performance like that, I'm expecting to be public enemy numero uno in team fights, which is why I look like I'm waiting for the Vagisil to dry in the next team fight before I grow the balls to literally do anything. But eventually I was ready, set, going straight into their base, as the ADC diff in this one was like a postcard from the Grand Canyon. So yeah, this is how all of my games with the cardio Caitlyn strategy have been going. Slow as a sloth taking a shit at the beginning, which is boring but it's consistent, and then just a bloodbath as a result of my right clicks to follow, and with that example in the books. I then sought out to see if this same exact bullshit works on the chick I would love to make Mrs. Fortune. I picked an exact reverse mirror matchup from game 1 to show that it's the strat and not the champ, and I also picked a game where my support had 3 brain cells just chillin' in a single file line waiting to be used. Her gameplay resembled that of a magnet, seemingly being pulled into every single enemy skill shot and ability. This also meant that while I was dancing for my life like a drug-addicted stripper, she would be 2 zip codes behind me with a bowl of popcorn. Thankfully my jungler received the SOS I sent out after seeing the bot-like behavior of this Leona and paid us a short visit, which I don't like to kiss and tell did result in a murder that was used to fund a pair of purple Nikes for yours truly. A fight around dragon breaks out, and while the famous saying goes the early bird gets the worm, it fails to mention that being tardy to the party means you get to play empty dragon pit shooting range simulator until 4 enemies are sitting on the dead bitch bench for a quick 30 seconds. The other benefit worth mentioning about having basically a pair of Moby boots this early is when your support is constantly more absent than a future OnlyFans girl's father in your life, you can dodge all the skill shots you need to stay alive and tower farm. When the Solari sperm cell does come back to lane, she immediately drops a cinder block on the gas pedal, and I'm all for it as I throw some glittery laxatives into the sky, and then I ask Rift Alexa to remind me of the term that means getting 3 kills without dying. I'm not gonna lie, the fight did get more sus than something you'd find at a P. Diddy party, and I may have desk popped a hooded midget employee mid-fight, but in the end it was a 2-for-1. And for all the colorful things I said about Leona, I feel it's time I take them back, as the placement of her sun nuke was just the peanut butter to my jizzing jelly in this next fight, and at this point things were looking good. That said, not every play between us was exactly a beautiful synchronized swim routine. And the mall cop might have gotten the fattest shutdown of her life, but it wasn't going to help her a minute later when she was more outnumbered than a young Bonnie Blue in front of a camcorder. All while her support was rolling in days late, looking like he had one too many bath salts, asking for directions back to the fountain. So I told him, dude, running up the river when your sob story limp is not gonna get you there. And so even though we were on different teams, I put our quarrels aside and gave him directions back to his base. The one particular synergy that this strat has with Miss Fortune is that she already has the I show speed passive on her W, so if you are like me and have the positional awareness of a burnt toaster strudel while paying more attention to your team flaming each other in chat than to the Warwick who is flying in hotter than a spoon at a Jesse Pinkman's house, you can just activate Usain Bolt speed to outplay an otherwise terrible situation. then all that you have to do is wait until there's a good time to push R and profit. The appropriate thing to do at this point would be to remember that this is literally a video about frequently basing to cash in on your goal, but I'm a dipshit, remember, and so my mom always said I'm a good example of a bad example, so use this clip to learn that if you don't back you'll just have less resources than a contestant on the show Survivor, and add to the list a delusional Kaisa Jungle who thinks your bronze ass could have positioned well enough with 9 mana, 8 health and 2 brain cells to properly kite in that situation. Side note, the speed from this build plus the greed that comes from your passive as a hard stuck player does enable you to be the front line your team needs in certain situations. The downside to this combination is that in team fights you'll magically forget about the concept of auto attack move and just stand there like a stationary Bloons tower defense turret inviting a Warwick ult. You survive the Michael Vick attack only to fall victim to your second suppression in 6 seconds while showing that you are still fed enough to make a poor misplay into a profitable one for you. The observant among you in the back seat would now recognize that I am the fed ADC against a team with 2 suppression ults, so deviating from the build at this point to queue up an SS in the bags would be advised, but you may instead notice that I chose to do none of that while also not looking at my mini-map. If I'm being honest, in my head I was thinking, oh, I will just position well and I also have a Leona who surely will be the best frontliner in the game for me. Neither of those things would turn out to be true. Ignoring these things, it is worth noting my jungler was a grade A dickhead about everything going down, and my Volibear had a bit too much red 40 in his diet the last 20 years of his life, shown by his decision making. I do want to point out that even with all the fuck-ups I have shown, this strategy still has me with an over 3500 gold advantage over the shit stain I'm laning against. And you know what they say, ADC gap wins games. As long as the ADC builds a fucking QSS when he knows from the last 5 deaths that every Tom, Dick and Larry will hold their ult for him, but he's literally a slow-minded thinker who cringes so hard at this gameplay he is going to write a hate comment on his own video at this point. And so with it I just want to say, try this strategy because it does work, but don't be a gooning goofball when QSS is on the menu. And also, if you like this satirical content, check out my video 15 ways to speed run depression while playing League of Legends. I'll link it below. Rav out.